Hey folks, Wally DM here, and I just recently finished watching Wednesday, which is a Netflix series that focuses on Wednesday Addams from the Addams Family and her friend Thing. And I thought it'd be really cool to have a puzzle or an encounter idea where we could use Thing as a living hand as opposed to a crawling claw that could be found in the monster manual, and have the characters interact with it. A first meeting between them and Thing. In fact, it's going to be a puzzle scenario where they're going to need to find a ring that's going to open a door, and that ring is going to be on the hand of Thing. But before we get started, I do want to mention if you are a patron of the channel at the $2 level or higher, you can download the PDF of this puzzle in written form along with a stat block for Thing. And if you are enjoying the content on the channel, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, follow me over on the Discord, and pick up a copy of my book, Wally DM's Journal of Puzzle Encounters, available now on DriveThruRPG. So in this puzzle, our adventuring party is entering from the east into the first level of the room. Now this entire puzzle does have 3 different levels, and this will be the top level. Now there's 2 different things that we can look at in here, and the first is our door that we're going to need to go through. This is the door that is the exit from this dungeon, or however you set it up to be. But this door does not have a door handle, and it doesn't have a keyhole. Now to the right of the door is a metal plaque, and this plaque has a tiny oval indentation. Now if our bard were to take a closer look into the oval indentation, they're going to see what looks like a snake or a cobra. Now anyone that is proficient in investigation or rolls a DC 12 investigation check or higher are going to realize that this oval indentation requires a specific piece of jewelry. And if they're to guess, this piece of jewelry would have an oval shaped gemstone with a raised image of a snake. Now directly underneath this oval indentation on this metal plaque are the words, "The Ring of the King." Now this door cannot be opened. Again, it doesn't have any keyholes, it doesn't have a handle, there's no visible way to open it, but the characters should be able to determine that if they're to put the correct piece of jewelry into this indentation, then that should open the door. Now the other area of interest in this room is a trapdoor. Now this trapdoor has been destroyed over time, it has rotted away. There are probably a few extra pieces left on the hinges, but for the most part this trapdoor is a 5-foot square open hole in the floor. Now, of course, our character is going to be able to see down into this hole, and they're going to see an iron ladder that's going to take them 15 feet down to the level below. So as the characters descend the iron ladder into the next room or the middle level, there's a number of different things they're going to see. The first thing and the most obvious is that the entire floor is made of 1-inch metal grating. And just by a casual glance, they can see that there is a deep, dark pit that resides underneath of it. It descends at least 40 feet down. Now I do want to take a quick second to point out that this entire puzzle area, this entire dungeon, is extremely dark. There's no natural light sources, so the characters are going to need to have magical light, lanterns, or torches, or things of that nature to be able to see efficiently. If they just have dark vision, then they may miss a few things. I'll leave that up to you as the dungeon master. Now in addition to the entire floor being 1-inch metal grating, they're also going to see another trapdoor. This is made of the same grating material, and it has a handle here where it can be pulled up if the characters want to descend into the deep dark pit that resides underneath. But before we get to that, let's take a look at our iron door that's over on the west side of the room. There is either going to be a lever or a valve over here, and if the characters come over and take a look at this area, they're going to see that there are trickles of water that is seeping through the stone wall, and a little bit of trickling of water that is coming from underneath the door. Now seeing that this letter or valve is here, the characters are going to be able to determine that this will open the door, but if they do open the door, there's a possibility of a rush or flood of water. But there is this metal grating, so most of the water should go into the pit. Now one more thing that I would mention, if the characters do have a light source, then one of the characters, let's just choose the character with the highest passive perception, is going to see a reflection coming from deep down inside the pit. So if they take a moment to look down, let's say our gnome ranger looks down through the grating, they're going to see all kinds of different trash and wooden planks, wooden doors, everything smashed to smithereens. But there is going to be one thing that's going to be interesting. Deep down inside this pit is going to be a wooden plank, and on top top of this wooden plank is a severed human hand with a ring on one of its fingers. So if the players haven't figured it out already, the severed hand that is down in the pit below is wearing a ring, and more than likely that ring is going to open the door that they need to get through. But how are they going to get it? Remembering, of course, in this iron grating is another trapdoor, and this one's going to open freely. And since we're 40 feet down, that's about 10 feet too much for Misty set, but if the characters were to take out a grappling hook and some rope, then perhaps they could lower themselves down into the pit. Now, in order to introduce Thing, or the animated severed hand, I would probably say that once the characters start looking down into the pit, perhaps they drop a rock down there with the light spell on it, or drop a torch or something like that, then I would either pick one of the characters or pick the character with the highest passive perception, or perhaps they all see this, but they're going to see the hand move. Once they see it be able to move, are they going to try to work with it, talk to it? Are they going to change their tactics to try to capture it? What are they going to do now that they see that the ring that they need is on Thing, or this living hand that's in a pit 40 feet below? So with all of that that's been presented, what would your character do in this situation? I'll give you a few seconds if you'd like to think about it. Did you get it? Great. Let's go over some possible answers. So I think the most interesting part about this puzzle is once the characters realize that this is a living hand that's in the bottom of the pit, and how are they going to get that ring off of the finger so that they can open the door? Are they going to continue on once they see it move and lower themselves down into the pit and try to get it from them? Or are they a little shy about going down there? Perhaps you had put a few crawling claws in a few dungeon rooms prior. Now, as opposed to the crawling claws that are a neutral evil, this is going to be Thing. This would be a well-worthy pet, or even an NPC that could join the party. Thing is going to be lawful neutral, maybe even neutral good. That's totally up to you. But Thing thinks a lot different than the crawling claws, and they're two totally different creatures. But let's get back to the puzzle. Now, of course, if the characters are not noticing Thing and they go immediately to the lever or the valve, then perhaps Thing will get the character's attention by just giving a couple snaps. And then perhaps Thing would just keep snapping his fingers, and once they see Thing, then perhaps he gives a little wave and says, "Hey, I'm here, I've got the ring, what do we do next?" And of course, if the characters conversate with the living hand well enough, then perhaps all they need to do is drop a rope down into the pit, and Thing will grab a hold of it and they can pull him out of there. But perhaps your characters are a little bit cautious of either going down into the pit or dropping a rope down to the living hand. They may in turn decide to try to flood the entire chamber to see if the hand will float up on one of the wooden planks that's down below. If this is the case, then they can come over here to the lever and start to turn on it. Now, this valve or this lever is going to require a strength score of 12 or higher, so any character with a strength of 11 or less are not going to be able to open it. However, if two characters were to come over here and work on the valve together, then as long as their combined strength score is 16 or higher, then they're going to be able to turn it. Now, once they start turning the valve or raising the lever, this door here doesn't open in and out. It actually opens from the bottom up. So this door will start going into the ceiling. And once this happens, water is going to start rushing through, and a lot of it is going to go into the pit below. Now, if the characters try to stop the valve or stop the lever at a certain point as they see this water coming through, I would have them make a DC 12 athletics check or a combined DC 20 athletics check if there's two of them. And if they make that, they're able to stop it. But if not, then the lever or the valve is going to lose control, and this is going to cram all the way open, and perhaps they could get pushed back by the flood of water. And that is totally up to you on how you want to run it. But eventually, once the water gets to a point, then Thing is going to ride this wooden plank all the way up, and the characters are going to be able to rescue Thing by pulling him out from this trapdoor area. Now, how Thing or the living hand reacts to the characters is going to be up to you as the DM. Perhaps it hinges on what the characters have done to this point. If they're friendly and act like they're trying to help Thing, then Thing might try to help them. Thing might crawl up the arm of whoever rescued him, perch on the shoulder, point towards a ladder, and just give an indication of "let's go, I have the key or the ring to open the door." Or if they ignored Thing and don't seem to be helping it, and especially if they open the water and letting it fill up without trying to rescue Thing, then perhaps once he gets up to the top, he's going to try to make a dash for it. And again, we have a stat block, so if we want to do any type of grappling checks or athletics and acrobatics, things like that, we can do so. But Thing is going to go up the iron ladder, open the door himself, and try to get out of here. Now, one more idea is we could also include a trap. So let's say the characters end up flooding the pit and Thing is riding this wooden plank all the way to the top. Not only is Thing coming up to the top, but there's also a dozen giant cobras. And now we can have a combat encounter. And I think that would make a lot of sense because the ring that Thing is wearing has a cobra engraved on the front of it. Now, the most important part about this entire encounter is to be able to open this door and continue through the dungeon. So what happens next is going to be totally up to your characters. Are they going to capture Thing and rip the ring off of its finger, or are they going to work with Thing and perhaps Thing will help them throughout the dungeon and become an ally or some type of an NPC? I'm really curious, what would your players do in this type of situation? Be sure to leave a comment below. So that's all I have for you today. What did you think of the puzzle? Is this something that you would use in your game? And if so, what would you do differently? And a special shout out today to my brother Jason, who drew the maps that you've seen in the video. Thank you very much for watching, and on to the next.